what does it mean to be a Black person? And why are we finding ourselves where we are finding ourselves? And the question of the impact of the oppressive Trinity on the psychological life of Africans and South Africans specifically. And how do we get ourselves out of this mud?
Yeah.
You know, and so one of the things that I then said to myself, okay, if I look at South Africa specifically and look at post-apartheid South Africa, that post-apartheid South Africa, as it relates to the role of Black people, is that it became synonymous with BEE.
Thank you for being here. I'm super appreciative that you chose to be here.
I mean, I think it's an important conversation that needs to be made time for. So I'm always humbled, you know, by the opportunity to talk about things that do matter to me, and because they matter to me because I think they matter to everybody. They should matter to everybody.
That leads us very nicely into the conversation, actually. When those of us, some of us were growing up aspiring to be teachers and cops and doctors and lawyers.
Yeah.
When you choose psychology, what on earth is wrong with you?
Right? Quite a thing.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because, I mean, my mom's a teacher.
Yeah.
And by the time I was born, my aunt was already a social worker.
Yeah.
So my early childhood vocabulary, I learned words like client.
Wow.
I learned the word conference.
Yeah.
I learned words called home visits because that's what my aunt used to do.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I apparently, according to my mother, was very explicit in saying, I don't want to be a teacher like her.
Yeah.
I apparently said, I want to go to conferences. I want to have clients.
Yeah.
Like my aunt. But I've never wanted to be a social worker.
Yeah.
I've never, ever referenced that.
Isn't that interesting, though? I mean, look at the work that you do. You run conferences.
Yes. Be careful.
Such clarity. So young.
True. And it's quite a way, you know, to answer your question, how do I end up in psychology? And I want to say psychology chose me in a manner that I didn't quite understand. In that way, I know, as I say, Guti, I never said I want to be a social worker, even though my aunt was one and working with people. But how I get into psychology is quite a thing because mina ngumntana seZola. Zaleke Zola. And I grew up there, and I just happened to be the street esisemva kwesethu. At this corner house, I see it so vividly. Bekunezangoma.
Yeah.
And before I am of school age, I go in your bukeli zangoma, a thing I never ever had seen before.
Yeah.
And that defined life for
Wow.
me. I remember walking away with a very clear sense. Yoguchi, there's more to life. There's more to human beings. There's a depth to human beings than just this buzzing around that we do. And I asked the question, where do they go? Where do these people go?
Yeah.
Because I can see there's a thing that's just like not here about this whole situation. Where do they go? And I then said, so what is a human being? You know, what is this depth of being human? What sits behind the curtain, so to speak? I want to know that.
Such profound questions at such a young age. Eh?
I guess.
Yeah.
Now that you say it. But for me, that was just what it said. You know, that's what came up for me. And interestingly then, because this was the only path I could see to a depth of human beings beyond the obvious.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to become. I knew I wanted to be a healer, but more, I wanted to understand human beings, that depth that sits behind the obvious surface stuff. And so for a long time, that's what I was chasing. And it got me into trouble, Ekaya, because I came from, particularly my mother's side. Kabo babami, it was okay. They didn't mind. But kabo mamami, they were very churchy people, religious. So, lezinto zezangoma.
And you're coming with strange things.
Yeah. No. And I was so captivated by it.
Yeah.
So, my grandparents didn't mind, but when I went home, but also interestingly is that, so, bengihlala kwagogo eZola. So, well, my parents, when they got married, they found a house next to Kabo babami.
Yeah.
So we had these two homes right next to each other. And then at the age of 4, my mother decided to separate from this loving mother-in-law relationship and all of that, because she felt she was doted on too much. And
what a nice problem to have.
Yes. No, she did. My grandmother used to make tea for my mother. She used to turn the bed. She used to bake for my mother. She used to do anything and everything.
Yeah.
I remember my grandmother would come every 2 weeks. She would bring up new flowers.
Wow.
And take the vase and for my mother.
Please.
That's what she always did. And so my mother decided she wanted, a separate, to find herself as a mother. And so they moved from Ezola to Mfule.
I want to have a conversation with your mom, because I'm like, people are talking about choosing struggles. That's not one I would have chosen. Me, I'm like, I'll find whatever. But this one I'm holding on to.
My mother was very like this, whereas she felt guti ukoko. I had 2 ukoko mncane no ukoko mkhulu. Were very doting.
Yeah.
Bebe spoiler.
Yeah.
And so it was in conflict with what my mother wanted.
Yeah.
Very this kind of thing. And so she wanted to establish her own colony. So we moved from Ezola. Well, they moved from Ezola to Mfulo. So I have a sister who's 18 months older than me. So they took her to live with them in Minangasala Gogo. And it is simply a matter of practicalities, apparently, where they said you can't take both the girls. Sina sosala noban, sizotumaba.
I mean, right?
Right. Sizotumaba. And that was the practicality on which I was left behind.
Yeah.
And it was unfortunately a source of a lot of pain for me, but also a privilege. It was a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
In the sense, Yoguchi, every child kind of wants to be with their parents, right? And so from that point of view, I was told, ngama weekends, but I spent many Fridays waiting. Akunama phone ngalesi sikhathi, waiting ukuthi bazongilanda. And I would wait. And you can imagine sub A to standard 2. Magoi Friday. I've learned the days of the week now. I know Baba Mies.
Translate the new ages to go to sub A.
Yo, I know they can figure it out. Because I don't know that world. So I the reference point about grade and
grade 1 to 4 basically for MK.
Yes. They need to correct me. I don't understand that reference point. So Mina on Friday, and many a times it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't have my phone then. I don't know what's going on. And so I ended up, I would cry many a times. And nobody shows up, Michael. And it's simply because I wanted to be with my parents, right? And Babam was like, before God, there was my father.
Yeah.
And so I longed for my father's presence and attention all the time. And so, our deepest scars are the scars we will experience in our homes. And so that for me was, if I now can look through the lens of psychology, my scarring, my trauma, my pain, that, issues around abandonment, rejection, good enoughness, lovedness, and all of that came from that experience. But it is also one where, thankfully, I had the privilege of ukula nabokoko, and allowed the kind of freedom. Yes, the kind of freedom that I would never have experienced ekaya. So it was that. In that I was allowed to be curious. I was allowed to, and I mean, I often look at, okay, so Nkulele Zola, and all the disadvantages of that. But I also I come from privilege, if I really think about it in a different way, because my aunt already had a degree by the time we were born.
Yeah.
So that, put us a cut above, in a sense. But also, so she had a typewriter. And I always say, I grew up the Apple laptop, so to speak.
Bloody
Because
snob.
before I could write,
I didn't
could
even
do this.
know what a freaking thing was. When you were playing with it, it was your
The
toy.
typewriter, it was our toy.
I was climbing trees and jumping. Do you know what kati is?
The
Kati, the game. That's what I used to play growing up. We
Really?
just climb up
Skipping?
trees. No, not skipping. Kati. You climb up trees, you go to the highest branch that can take you, and you've got to assess that it can carry your weight.
Yeah.
And then we compete on who goes to the highest and then jumps down.
Oh, no.
Now I was doing that when you were sitting being fancy with
Totally. Bengilami. I was baby.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, that's what I wanted to become, because that's what I saw at the time. And as I was saying, funny enough, even though when Mfulo, so I had Zangoma Ezola, and when Mfulo, Esratin said to Beguna Zangoma. So even when I moved from Ezola, when I was in standard 2, halfway through standard 2, my mother found a way to swing it so that I come ngizohlala ekhaya. And she said, no, the school, she wasn't happy with the school. So she wants me close to ngizofunda esikoleni sakhe, because she was a primary school teacher. So that's how she managed to get me out of Ezola to Mfulo. But izangoma were the thing for me. It would be like, after school, cleaner and all of that. Mangizwi scoop. I'm gone.
Yeah.
I am gone.
Wow.
Bazongishaya, ngiyazi ukuthi bazongishaya. It's okay. It's a price I will pay. Bazongishaya. And, over the years, I actually had, because bengine scoop sam and Kunguslaya, and I wanted to be right at the front of anything.
So is this, you had your own scoop at the
Zangoma? Yes,
okay.
Zangoma.
Right.
And angfuni anybody at this scoop sam, so I must be there first. And I wanted to sit at the front, because I got to know Uguti, they have to tell you.
Okay.
Uguti, you have been called.
Yeah.
So you can't choose. Uguti, mina angifuni by Sangoma, and you just pack your bags and you go.
So you positioned yourself for maximum impact.
Exactly. I wanted to be at the front, because I figured out, what if Abangbon? I have to be at the front. They have to see me, because they must tell me when. I was ready.
Yeah.
And I was so prepared for it. I was like, ekhaya, I know ngebavume, angeke ngibatshele.
Yeah.
So once they tell me, I'm going to pack izinto zami ngizifake paper bagini, I'm going to disappear. And it was like, they can't take it away from me.
Yeah.
Ngizohamba ngiyothwasa, and then by the time I come back, they can't take it away from me. They can't do anything. Bazongishaya mabafuna ukungishaya, but they can't take it away from me. Yeah, because Ezola, actually, there was a guy. His name was Aaron. I wonder if that guy is still alive.
Yeah.
He wasn't much older than me. And I admired him, because
Yeah.
and I remember him, the whole thing. And I used to look at him and think, wow, this boy at such a young age already, engages in the mysteries of being human and all of these things. I was like, wow, I wish I was him.
Yeah.
Because kubo bamvumele, mina ngithi bayongishaya. And yet, kubo bayongivumela. To even be here at this young age, mina ngisesikoleni, fanele ngiyofunda incwadi and all of that. This boy is here, like full time.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I admired. And I was waiting for my turn.
Yeah.
And my turn never came. And no matter how many, I would go mamncane wami and it's mamncane wami hlala eKhilani, maybe at a different place. Nakhona kuseduze nezangoma, I would always visit ngiye ngeweekend.
These locations you guys chose though.
Everywhere.
No wonder you felt called.
Everywhere. I was. I was looking. Ngithi, okay, let's say Mfulo maybe abangiboni. Let me go to a different place. Ake ngiyeza ngobenza eKhilani.
Yeah.
Like mangifika for the weekend, I will do everything. Ngiclean ngenze ngigeze, and I'd be gone.
Yeah.
Ngisezangomeni. Ngizobuya mabaqeda kushona ilanga ntambama. because I'm waiting
Yeah,
for this
for the
thing to be
calling.
told, the calling,
And
the
if
calling.
that telephone line is not working in
Yes.
Zola or Mfuno,
Yes,
it
I'll
will
go
work
somewhere else. maybe 5G capacity. It's stronger. It never happened until I was in standard 8,
Yeah.
grade 10, right?
Mm.
And our headmaster, I had, was attending school a pace. I was one of the first students that started that school, which was a private school at Soweto. And we had career guidance talks, and our headmaster would invite people to come and give a talk. And there was this white woman who was a psychologist who was invited to come and speak. And within 2 minutes, I was like,
That's me.
that's that thing.
No wonder that telephone line is not working. No, it's not my line.
This is like within 2 minutes, I was like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But also now, it's a thing I could talk to my family about.
Yeah.
It's a thing I could bring home because
Yes.
Leanna,
It's
there was
got
no
school in
room
it.
for it. Yeah, there was no room for it. Bantrapila for yon. It didn't work. So at least this one. It was a huge relief because I was in a commercial school and I knew there's no ways. I was in a school where we were supposed to be the economics, the accountants, the CAs and the whatevers. I knew, and I said to my friends, there's no ways I'm going to be any of this.
Yeah.
There's no ways. It just doesn't resonate with me. It's just not me. And I always say, I know that God has been watching over me because how I got through that education, maths, business economics, accounting, those 4 things, nje.
Yeah.
Angazi.
Yeah.
I've just been carried. I know I've been carried because even to this day, numbers above 10
Yeah.
are not my thing. So there's no ways I was meant to be in that space for that reason.
Yeah.
So I really have been carried into because at that point I suddenly said, thank goodness, now I know where I'm going.
Yeah, maybe, that whole broken telephone line, this is how they made up for it, your sisters, to say, okay, let's help her through this one. Leanna, we didn't give it to her, but let's get her through the
best chance. Let's give her the best chance to get to where she needs to get to. So that's how I then, like, from now, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
This was it.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing that always fascinated me is the so-called amahlanya,
Yeah.
I've always loved those people.
I love how you say it. So-called. You must tell us more about that as well.
In a different
Say
way.
what you need to say, but I want to go back to the so-called.
Yeah. Yeah, the so-called siyahlanya sonke, just in a different way. But elokishini, people would always make fun of them or bayasajwa and all of that.
Yeah.
I always found fascinating.
Yeah.
So I would always walk up to these people and talk to them.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to understand, where are they?
Yeah.
In what world do they live?
Yeah.
So I would always want to see, can I have a conversation with them?
Yeah.
Can they come into this world that I'm in? Can I go into their world? How do these two worlds coexist? How do they separate and all of that? So I always took my chances. I was like, well, let's see.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's
Let
see.
it be.
Yeah, let's see. And what does it take for
Never happen. Besides, you're already well trained from being beaten for going to Sangomas.
Exactly. Into going to see.
So that wasn't the thing.
Nah, I will take my chances as I always have already. And so I always and so now when I got to understand, there's actually a field called psychology that talks to this world.
This community, yeah.
And interestingly then, as I'm thinking about it now, in both contexts, whether I'm looking at Izangoma or I'm looking at Amahlanya, I'm always looking at what's beyond the common space.
Yeah.
Like, where do there's a special space that these people inhabit. And that's the world that I was fascinated and drawn into.
Yeah.
So, I guess that kind of talks to.
But you talk about amahlanya, as we call them. And my father tells a story of a gentleman who was also one of those amahlanyas. And then there's group of people, I don't know the number, I don't remember the detail, but they're traveling in a car and they lose a tire somehow. It either got flat, or no. I actually don't think it was flat, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. The solution they came up with, but somehow they lost the tire, and then they had a spare one, which they put in. But now they're sitting there all stuck, because when they lost the tire, it looks like even okay. And the mad guy comes and asks them what the problem is. And then they tell them. And then he comes up with a solution to say, but Anyesho, you've got 3 others that are here. So take the nuts from the others, 1 each, and then put it in this one.
Right.
And then they're all sitting there, all perplexed. And they're like, but when... have you stopped being mad? And it's like, no, I'm mad, not stupid.
There's a difference between the two. Exactly. And the so-called normal people and clever people
will come up with a solution. Here's your person accessing a solution.
Right.
Your curiosity is well worth exploration, I suppose, is the point I'm making.
True. True. And with the so-called normal people don't often see those windows.
Yeah. We live in a matrix anyway.
Yeah. We just don't know it.
Quite conditioned, and we think we are creative.
True.
In the way we live.
Yeah. And
then you've decided to complicate it as well and add the element of Africanness. And I guess with your Sangoma stories, it makes sense. But tell us a little bit more about why you chose that specifically. What is it about, once you got into psychology, what drew you to this particular area?
Africanness. I guess what drew me to it is how, I specifically was drawn to the world of psychology, but my starting point was as an African, as a Black person, right? How will this speak to my lived experience as a Black person and the issues that I see in my context of origin? And how will it enable me to be an effective contributor within that space? And what I found when I eventually got to university and got to study psychology, there's nothing that spoke to African experience. There was nothing. The gods of psychology, the ancestors of psychology. And I'm sure nobody needs to, ask who is Freud, because Izo Zelkulu. The European psychology, and that is the psychology that we are fed, and its alienating effects. And for me, it always was missing. And one critical issue that was missing, and it's so interesting that, so you study masters, and in my master's year, second year of masters, I remember suddenly they say, so today is our last lecture. What? And I'm like, Kanjani, are we done? What do you mean? What do you mean we're done?
There's so much more we haven't covered.
But specifically, I said, but we never not once said anything about spirituality, being the spirit. We never said anything about that. So how can we be done? What do you mean I'm finished? What do you mean you're going to send me out there when you haven't discussed the central concept?
With the other part.
You've told me about the psyche, but you've never told me anything. We haven't discussed anything about the spirit. So for me, we were like undercooked. And I'm being served on the table, like, kanjani, So that was one thing that not only is Black experience not a core part of the curriculum, it is just incidental. We are reduced to just a lighter shade of whiteness, because psychology, let me specifically say Euro-Western psychology, the fundamental tenets or principles of it is that it's neutral. It is universal. and it is objective. So those three pillars, says find yourself lapho. Now you are already accounted for. In everything that's being said by Freud and all of them, now ulapho. It speaks for you as well, right? And it is not political. So it stands outside of politics. It says we are neutral because everything that we talk about speaks for everybody. So we don't get involved in politics. And my question is like, kanjani? And then thirdly, it is objective. How does it become objective? When it presents constructs that are already situated within a certain context, whatever dynamics of that context, socio-political, economic context. So how does it then pretend to be objective? It is not possible. But also specifically, how does it speak to who I and many other people of African descent define who we are, our existence and our experiences? And so that became a troubling thing for me, and it became more so troubling after my master's. And it became the impetus to my PhD work because it just doesn't exist. There's an important part of the experience of being of African descent that has no space within the mainstream psychology space and all its discourse, and therefore that became for me an itch and an ache that brought me back to the academy to say, how can I construct a body of work that will interrogate and speak to the experience of people of African descent, wherever they may find themselves on the continent, in the US and across the diaspora. How do we construct a psychology or begin to at least conceptualize what it means and specifically what it means for a very defining experience in the history of people of African descent. And it is what I referred to as the Trinity of oppression, which is slavery, colonization, and apartheid. And I'm smiling because, my supervisor, my promoter disagreed with that concept. And I ultimately was, forced to abandon that concept. But it is a concept that I own, Mina. Personally, if I speak about it, I speak to it as the Trinity, the oppressive Trinity of slavery, colonization, and apartheid.
And you do say that this thing became more prominent post your master's studies. But even your master's thesis, which we have over here, the focus of it had something to do with that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my master's dissertation was on anorexia nervosa in Black females. Again, there's a personal history that attaches to how I end up choosing this topic of all topics. So I am in high school from 81, being my standard 8, and therefore 81 to 85 is my high school years. But you will then recall socio-politically where we were as a country at the time. Quite a volatile time, and particularly an era that then gets referred to as the liberation before education era. And so during that 5 years, there was a lot of disruption in our education, a lot of as kwelwa and no school, everything, it is about liberation before education. And Tinage being positioned in our school, this private school, we are this so-called, and I would liken it to the Oprah Academy of the time. This was the equivalent.
Definitely was.
This was the equivalent. And so we are seen as these kids,
Yeah.
you know, and when these things happen, we have been taught, you know, this education is so important. And so when then there's a slogan, it's liberation before education, it throws us.
Yeah.
Because how can it be, you know, and we are these kids that were selected from.
But when it only threw you because you were, you know, Chris, everyone else, that made sense.
Yeah, and maybe it did.
Privilege is what.
Yes. Yeah. In our school, there's only one thing one ambition. Yeah, and one ambition, right? And so it becomes a disruption, right? And so in 1985, when we were not supposed to be writing exams, we did write exams, and we were smuggled out of Elokishini, and we were placed in the suburb.
Yeah.
We were smuggled and farmed out to white homes in various parts of the Johannesburg to write our exams.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, much to the disappointment of everyone, starting with ourselves, because at the time we were writing what was then called a JMB exam, which was quite a high-level exam. The IEB exam, I think, would be the equivalent now. And we didn't perform as, you know, expected. And the eyes of everybody was on these kids, you know, just as much as they were with Oprah's first cohort of matriculants. So like, let's see what happens here. And it becomes a dismal failure. I myself being one of those people, I had already calculated it. I'm 16, 17 in matric. By the time I'm 21, I will have finished my honors, you know, the whole thing, the dream.
Yeah.
And everything fell, you know, to the ground. It collapsed. And so 1985 becomes that year of failure. I'm not able to go to university. My subjects, my pass mark doesn't allow me to go to university. 86, school.
Yeah.
It's all that liberation before education. So we are at home.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? At that time, I don't see a way out of this. So my life literally implodes, you know. But fortunately, I then get a lifeline.
Yeah.
And that lifeline comes in the form of a job that our headmaster, who had been the headmaster of Michael House, then is brought to start the school. But we were sponsored by American Chamber of Commerce, companies that were affiliated to that. So somehow a work opportunity is offered. And my headmaster selects me for this opportunity, and I get a job as a receptionist for an executive recruitment company in Rosebank. Suddenly, sengiyasebenza. Sengivuka ekuseni. I must now run ngiyogibela isitimela to town, and then from town I must take a double-decker bus to Rosebank. Here I suddenly have to be an adult.
Yeah.
That was never in my script. That was never supposed to be the thing, you know, the trajectory of my life. And so at the time, my family is in absolute chaos. My parents' marriage is in chaos. I fight physically with my father. It becomes a fight like with death threats issued by me to my father, whom I was going to kill at that age of 16, because one of the things that happens is that he slaps my mother, and I just hear my mother screaming. I dash out. And I fly into my father's face, and he starts bleeding, and it becomes, I will kill you. I will kill you. And I then have an all-out war with my father, who was my idol.
Yeah.
So that relationship over time changes into arch enemies. And I swore to my father, and I said to him, the one time I said, "Anyeke sivuke soyi-2, one of us will live and one of us will die."
That's hectic.
And I say to him, you better kill me.
Mm.
Because if you don't, I'm
will
going to kill you.
Wow.
But so itu angeke siphile la.
There's not enough space for both of us.
No,
here.
it's not an option. Only one of us will live here. And so through a combination of that, so I'm working now. I am not at varsity. There's dysfunction in my family. I go into a state of I stop eating. And this stop eating, and I still kind of like try to remember what that was about, and I can't make sense of it. But it starts off as something like, so ngikhalele something, let's say chocolate, and I would buy it, and then I would put it here. And then I'd say, so what happens if you don't eat it? And an hour goes by. So nothing has happened. So what happens if you don't eat it for another hour? And so I defer. I stop eating. I'm still alive. An hour goes by, I'm still alive. So nothing has changed. It can't be that big.
Anything you've discovered a new superpower.
Yeah. So I stop eating. And eventually it comes down to I live on a biscuit a day. And that becomes my life. And the other thing, I work, mangifike ekhaya. I don't know why, but I start running as well. I start jogging. And I jog 1 block from here to, and then kusasa I come back, I must add another block. And so through that, I start losing weight. And for me, I'm not even aware because I don't care about that.
That's what it's about.
That had nothing to do with it at all. And so when I start losing weight and my mother pleads with me to eat, and I'm like, I'm not hungry. When I'm hungry, I will eat. But my mom at some point gets so desperate that she asks umalume wam, the oldest brother, who lived not far from Ekhaya in Fulo, to come and talk to me about me not eating. And then I'm like, what is this? I don't understand this whole thing. And my uncle tells me, Uguchi, if I don't eat, I will die. And then I think, what the hell is that? There's no such thing. Like, who does that?
I've been doing this.
There's no such a thing. Like, how can anybody die from just like, it doesn't make sense to me at all. And then he says to me, so umalume wami worked for, now I see it as subcontractors who will come and do renovations. So wayesebenzele Portuguese guy, and they would do renovations. And then malume wami says, actually, the family bekasebenzela, the daughter yakhona died, and they took her to hospital, and she said, Johannes, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to die. And she died because she stopped eating. And then I think my uncle thinks I'm stupid. There's no such thing.
Dude.
There's no such
Pull the
thing.
other leg.
Yes. And he says, this daughter died from anorexia.
Yeah.
And I think my uncle is spinning a word. There's no such a word. There's no such a thing. My uncle agafundanga in my world. Like, how does in my world, right?
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, so many years, long story, I go back to varsity. Eventually I study and I get into my honors. Then I get to hear anorexia.
He was right.
My God, this thing exists.
Yeah.
This thing is real. What the hell?
Yeah.
By this time, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to my uncle because I thought he was lying. I thought there's no such a thing. And it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So now I get to study this thing and then I get to reflect. So this is how anorexia, so, you study the whole developmental landscape and so on. It's a white thing. It's a white middle class thing. But then I wasn't any of those things.
Yeah.
How it develops, the symptoms, the picture of it, the causes and whatever. But I had nothing to do with this.
Nothing ticks my box.
Yeah, nothing ticks my boxes here. So what's the possibility? So this is how I then think, does it apply to Black people? Because if you looked at me, I lost a lot of weight and that's how they then classify me, and my uncle associates me with this thing. But I had nothing to do with these things that they are talking about here. So what's the possibility that maybe other Black girls have been misdiagnosed as being anorexic when in fact they were not, you know. And so that's how I then decide to explore how this thing shows up in Black females. And I found 3 Black females who had been, and I'm very specific about, they must have been diagnosed, but they must also have been treated. And I want to see the extent to which it resonates with their experience. So that's how I then end up doing this study, because I don't see anything in what we are studying that talks to. Because it said it's white middle class. So my understanding then suggests, Guti, if it would show up in Black females, it would suggest an acculturation. So that they are aspiring to these white standards of what it means to be a female, of female beauty and the female body. And so, and then I ask, is it true? Because it wasn't true for me. Is it true for them? And that's exactly what I found, that in the 3 Black females, the first one that I encounter, she comes from a family. So what my study does is, like, I want to investigate who are these females and what does their life look like? What leads up to them being diagnosed and treated for anorexia? And then I find in the first one, she comes from a family, but the 2 of them come from Soweto. So there's no Black middle class thing. And then you then think, okay, so if it happens in Black females, they will come from Black middle class families. They will come from private schools. They will come from interacting and living a white life. Yes. A white life, and therefore the acculturation into the Western white norms. And that's not the case. They come from Soweto, afunde lokishini, and the first one happened to be a family. She's a twin, and both of them happen to have liked entering beauty pageants. So the sister, the father used to be into adverts. He was advertising for a sales house, if anybody remembers what that.
I do.
Yeah, he was a model for he was a model for sales house. And then their older sister also used to enter beauty pageants, and then the twin sisters, also emulating their sister, they go into beauty pageants as well. And so what then happens with the one is that they live in Orange Farm. And there's going to be Miss Orange Farm. And then this one says the 2 of them as the twins, because they were always entering together, and they would either be the queen and the first princess. They always used to change that role like that. So she talks to her twin sister. She says, hey, let's go and enter. And the sister says, no, let's give other people a chance, because we are always winning, sort of thing. And this one says, no, I'm not giving them a chance. I'm entering. I want to be Miss Orange Farm. And when she goes to put her name down, Eskoleni, apparently the one teacher said, but when you've put on weight.
Oops.
And that was it. She goes to class. She asks her classmates, guys, really, have I put on weight? And some of them says, yeah. And that was the trigger for her. So she went on a mission to lose weight. So she goes home. She starts, purging and vomiting. And so she then deteriorates. She starts losing weight and all of that. And her family think there's something wrong with this. And then by Mrs. Sangomeni, and Sangoma says there's been witchcraft because she's studying fashion design. Some kid did something, and so she's put through this regimen, Fanega Gezwe, and she says this thing they gave her, Iababa Magageza, and and she knows because she doesn't tell them, but she vomits the food. So their parents don't know, but she has to go through this thing, this treatment regimen that she's given, and until she gets to a point, she's like, I have to tell them the truth because I can't keep doing this because it has nothing to do with this. I know what I'm doing. It's a secret, but my parents don't know. So she eventually tells them. And that's how she gets admitted then to Tara. at the eating disorders ward.
Yeah.
And the second one, also from Miss Nawani, Ikolos Valley, where she went to visit family at KZN, kuyadliwa ngo-December and all of that. She comes back and someone makes a comment, ukuthi, yo,
Okay.
so khuluphele bheka nama-pleat we-gym dress
Eish.
awasavaleki. And then she says, she thinks, oh my goodness, it means ukuthi sengikhuluphele kangako, like my boyfriend's gonna leave me. And so she starts drinking vinegar.
See what you guys put us through.
Yeah, so she also goes on a weight loss spree.
Yeah.
But she takes the vinegar and she says she sees her sisters and her mother, they are, you know, of big
Voluptuous,
body.
yeah.
And she thinks, this is how I'm going to look. And so she starts doing that and she starts purging as well, vomiting and using vinegar. And she also then ends up at Tara. And the third one was from Epulukwane. You know, socioeconomically, she came from, her father was a magistrate, her mother was a nurse. And yeah, so she also was a plumpy girl at school. And she says, again, you guys, she says she had a crush on this guy.
Yeah.
And somehow somebody told this guy, Uguchi, this girl has a crush on you. And apparently the guy said, aye.
Not my body size.
Yes, not my type, you know. And she then goes into a spiral, weight loss spiral. And she eventually, her mom being a nurse, she has trouble sleeping and her mom gives her sleeping tablets. And she works out in her mind, Guti, if she takes 3 days worth of sleeping tablets, it means she has 3 days in which she's not going to be eating and therefore not gaining weight.
Flipping.
And she, in those 3 days, she'll be sleeping. And she overdoses.
This solutions-focused brain of ours
Can
is
you imagine?
dangerous.
Yeah,
eh?
very. So needless to say.
You're solving my problem.
Yes. Yeah. Means 3 days I will not be eating and 3 days I will not be gaining weight. 3 days I will be losing weight.
Yeah.
So she ends up in hospital. And then she tells them, no, this is what happened. I wasn't trying to kill myself. This is what happened. I was trying to lose weight. And okay. So she also gets admitted.
Yeah. And listen, I'm super grateful for your curious mind and for asking yourself questions that don't come naturally to some people. Because, I mean, we all know the academic word for all it preaches actually doesn't inspire too much questioning of what is. At least don't question. You can question everything else, but don't question academia. And the fact that you firstly had that curiosity, that explorative mind that took you there, and that you even had the inclination, the desire, the courage even to go there, because it's not easy. I mean, some of the consequences of this not basing these things on Africans is that the disjointedness. I mean, how long does it take us to consult with a psychologist when we need to?
Yeah.
Because it's not for us, right? It hasn't always been.
Yeah.
Yes, we're getting better at it.
Yeah.
But if you construct something that's designed for everyone else but us, and when I go, like in your case, you like, it was acculturation, and you know it's not about me. You know, how do I subscribe to this?
Yeah.
And yet the field of psychology itself is very important.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are benefits to be had
for
everyone.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. And you know, the unfortunate thing while we are here is that actually, and this I get to find out in my PhD, because this is the first time I actually get to understand that there's a whole body of academic work that is geared, that is by the people, for the people, right? And actually I get to learn that even the word psychology actually comes from Africa. It comes from
that I didn't know until I listened to your interview. That interview, talking about Franz Fanon. I didn't realize.
Yeah. It comes from Kemet. The original word is Saku Jaya. And the word means illumination of the spirit. So isn't it interesting then to my question in my master's when I said, but we haven't said anything about the spirit?
Precisely.
Because I guess that's what was the core of it. And so what then happens is that it becomes a phrase in Greece, because that's how it gets coined. And it is through the European scholars who came to Alexandria and to Africa to study, because Africa was the center of academic pursuit. So they used to come here to study, and it is then that psychology, Sakujaya, gets taken over to Europe. But in the formation of the sciences, the so-called empirical science and objective science, then psychology gets trimmed of this mambo jumbo called spirit and things that you can't quantify, things you can't touch.
It does make life difficult, guys.
So they trim it into this thing called psychology so that it can fit into what becomes recognized as scientific inquiry. And so that's how then it then shifts. These things get left out of it, and it becomes empirical behaviorist psychology. That's how that becomes the first, leg into the scientification of psychology as such. But actually, the sad thing, to your point, is that we don't even recognize ourselves in psychology, and yet we are the people that are the ancestors of psychology as such.
Yeah. And there's a thing here that the fact that at the time that these decisions were made to package this into something that we could measure scientifically, there's a sense in which it makes sense, but there's a sense also in which, sometimes things develop because you go at them as a whole.
Yeah.
When you compartmentalize it like that, you lose the opportunity to explore the whole and see where that exploration would have taken you.
Right.
Even if your goal was that measurability, who knows what you would have discovered.
Yes.
But for what it's worth, it wasn't limited to psychology, isn't it? This is how we develop these specialisms.
Yes.
Even the body, we wanted to separate it, to say
dissect
it can work independently of the rest of the system. And we're learning otherwise now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the casualty, I guess. And the other sad thing is, not only do we do that, if we did that and still acknowledged that it is just a fraction of, but we then take that fraction and make it into a whole.
It develops a life of its own.
Yes.
Now it must sustain itself. It must justify my existence as this. Therefore, I must continue.
And everything else gets dumped.
Yep.
As inconsequential. And this is all that it is reduced to. And in psychology specifically, it is reduced to the world according to the Western world.
Yeah.
And it is then offered to anybody that's outside of it as your truth as well. You are already spoken for in this.
Yeah.
And which is not true.
Yeah.
It is true, but yet it is not the whole truth.
Absolutely.
It is true in the sense that we are also human.
Yeah.
And so therefore, there are universal aspects of what it means to be human, whatever your social, cultural, geographical persuasion. And yet, there are things that are unique to us.
Context matters.
Context is everything, right? It shapes the psyche. And therefore, that was trimmed out, and you are forced to find yourselves in a discourse that spoke to a particular people and their reality. But you are told that this is the reality you also have to inhabit and work from and see from and work from as a psychologist.
Indeed.
Which is a misfit.
Yeah. Your PhD then, what did that deal with? Won't you hold it up a little bit? Won't you hold it up for the...
Oh, yeah, sure.
This is for the cameras, and then give us a brief overview of what you tackled.
Yeah. Yeah, so my title is How African-Centered Psychology Scholars Conceptualize the Construct of Black Psychological Empowerment. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I have to get my breath for it. So the background to this is that we've had these conversations, and all of us have had these conversations as Black people in South Africa specifically, to say, what does it mean to be a Black person? And why are we finding ourselves where we are finding ourselves? And the question of the impact of the oppressive trinity on the psychological life of Africans and South Africans specifically. And so one of the things that I reflected on out of these many, and how do we get ourselves out of this mud?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I then said to myself, okay, if I look at South Africa specifically and look at post-apartheid South Africa, that post-apartheid South Africa, as it relates to the role of Black people, is that it became synonymous with BEE.
Yes.
With BEE, economic empowerment. And so I then said to myself, okay, so what does this tell us? It tells us that the people in the economic space took a step and analyzed things, and they came to a conclusion that said, this oppressive trinity had a significant impact on the economical life of African descendants. And therefore, because of that, we have to put in place certain measures that are aimed at addressing the impact of this oppressive trinity on the economic life. And for whatever it's worth, we can spit at it, we can criticize it and whatever. But there is something that was put in place because they said that impact was significant enough. Well and good. And then I say to myself, okay, if that be the case, the oppressive trinity wasn't just economic. And above all, it was actually psychological warfare.
Oof, tell me about it.
So the economic part is just a symptom of what happened at the psychological level. And yet,
if you ask me, the economics, it's secondary, because once you fix
the psyche,
the mind,
yes,
it's like,
exactly,
then all of it, you enabling me to fix everything else.
Exactly.
But if you start at the wrong end of this thing, it's just.
But who's talking about that?
Yeah.
Who's talking about that? Nobody. So we are focusing on the secondary. We are focusing on the symptom, and nothing is being said about the cause. Right?
And then we get surprised when things don't change at the pace that we want. But we've put the cart
before the horse.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I said to myself, okay, so if this is the case, if my argument has any validity in it, that above all it was psychological warfare, where does it feature then in psychology? Well, it certainly hasn't featured up until I finished my master's. There was nothing said about that. And then I said, okay, perhaps it makes sense for white psychology for it not to matter to them, because it suits them. It serves them that it doesn't matter. It makes sense. They benefit from it not mattering, because then they continue to be at the center of our lives, and we continue to be peripheralized, if at all, brought into the center. And then I said, hang on. But what about black psychologists? White psychologists have no business to care, maybe, and I can forgive them. But
it's not their lives. In the same way that you are driven by your own circumstances, why would you expect them to drive this? It's not about them. And it's not even, there's no malice in that necessarily.
Sure.
There may be in some individuals. But
you can understand.
Showing up as a black person in a different context and being driven to address black issues, that makes sense because I'm black.
Yes.
Why am I depending on someone else?
Exactly. And the principle says, what is this woman's name? And I quote her work in my thesis, who said, the master's tools were never designed to destroy the master's house.
Absolutely not.
Right. And so that being the case, I then said, Well, somebody has a responsibility, and that's us. That's us. If they don't care, we have to care. But do we? Do we care? I've not heard anything. Right? I've not heard anything from Black psychology.
Yeah, and if we say we care, what's the evidence
Exactly.
to that effect? Because it's all good. That's the other thing that makes me tired about us, to be honest. That we care verbally, but we don't have. I love your profile message, by the way, on WhatsApp. You say, don't desire, or whatever language you use, maybe you should tell us, but something to the effect that don't wish for something more than
willing to work for it.
I mean, if you just wishing, just put in the word.
Yeah, because if you think you're worth it, then it's worth your effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So the same thing. So I then said, okay, so where is Black scholarship? So where are Black psychologists? And then I look, where are we? Most of us are in private practice. What have we done? We have copied exactly what white people do. Which suits them and their lives. It suits them that they are in these cute little private rooms having one-on-one conversations. But what are we doing there while Rome is burning?
Yeah, but outside? It goes back to the point we were making, right? That it's not everyone that's going to develop that curiosity. People are like, I'm studying psychology. Yes. I'm assimilating. Yes. Rather than getting educated, right? And that's the distinction I was drawing earlier. And that's why I feel very strongly that by nurturing your curiosity and your exploration, you are doing a powerful thing. Not everybody is going to be burnt to that extent to do these things. So thank you once again for going there.
Thank you. It haunted me. It haunted me. I have to tell you this. You know, after all these conversations, we keep having these conversations, and then I keep saying to myself, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And then I would say, like, what am I going to do about it? And I woke up one night. It woke me up one night. I literally sat up in my bed, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Because it's just like, hey, hey, that thing is still waiting. That thing is still waiting. You've talked about it, but what are you doing about it? You've talked about it.
And you're busy making noise at people that don't experience it the same way that you do, expecting that they will drive.
It's talking to me.
You're not talking.
It's got my name on it.
Do
and
it.
So I got up and I sat in bed and I said, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I had to, I had to agree to this.
Yeah.
Because it just wouldn't leave me alone. And so I then, my work above anything else is I constituted a think tank. Because I then said, where are the Black scholars? And I looked and I divided, psychology. Where do we go? Mostly we are in private practice. Some of us are in the corporate space, like I am predominantly. And then there's the academics who are at varsity. And they've been there. They've been there long enough. But Tulile, what are they saying? Because on some level, I can these ones about private practice. But these ones, these are the scholars. They are the ones that are the thinkers. They are the ones that write and publish all this work. Where are they? Why is there a deathly silence around this experience? And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Because we can't sit like these helpless victims. We have to talk. We have to do something. We are entrusted with that responsibility, actually. Because it is one thing to blame white scholars and white psychology, but Tina Senzani about it. And that's when I then said, I have to find them. I have to find them. I have to ask them. I have to ask them. And I essentially had 3 questions to my research. It was, how do they understand the impact of the oppressive trinity of slavery, colonization, and apartheid on the psychological life of African descendants, of people of African descent? Because this is the one experience that you can't talk about what it means to be an African without talking about these the impact of these three things on the psychological life of people of African descent. And so that was my first question. What do you understand as the impact of the oppressive trinity on the psychological life of people of African descent? The second question was, based on your understanding of that impact on the psychological life of African descent, people of African descent, how would you conceptualize Black psychological empowerment? What does it mean? And then the third question, how do we get there?
Yeah.
Given that impact, how do we get there? So I my research was with 14 scholars, professors, doctors, and masters in psychology in South Africa. My participants were predominantly in South Africa, in Botswana, in the UK, and in the US to really cover, the diaspora as well. Yeah.
And what did you find, particularly in relation to the last two questions?
So this is where academics becomes academics. So the interesting thing is, it took me 5 years to do my PhD, and even finding a supervisor became a tricky thing. And my first supervisor was also my supervisor for my master's. And she didn't understand what I was talking about.
I feel like it's understandable.
Yeah.
Like, what
She
good
didn't
stuff are you
understand.
smoking?
Yeah. I didn't understand what I was talking about. And I remember, in one of the things I do talk about is her reminding me that I'm too spirited. I'm too militant. I'm too activist. And she, I must remember.
At some point, we must go back to this thing, even if it means another episode, because I get so, the way we like to neuter people. That castration, I mean, what does it mean to be too spirited? I've been told I'm too strong a leader as well. I'm like, what the heck are you saying?
Yeah.
But I have a serious allergic reaction
to that
kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I do talk about that because, she always would remind me, this is not activism, this is academia. Academia is about contributing to the body of scholarship.
And what is it about being spirited that actually takes away from that?
Yeah, your activism outside the gate, that's where you become an activist.
But then it tells you, it answers your question to why are the academics silent? It's because they're living up to that.
That was
that's
the ultimate finding. Yeah, that's the ultimate finding. And I remember I'd get so angry each time she said that. And I said to her, the privilege of being white is that you can distinguish between scholarship, the sobriety of scholarship, and the emotion of activism.
On this one, I would like to just take a defensive stance on whiteness, because I think that detracts, it takes away even for them. For me, that spirit, that passion is required, irrespective of whether you're black or white.
Yeah.
And it would be so enriching, actually, to bring that to the fore.
Sure.
And anyone who denies passion, the role of passion in coming up with whole solutions, is just missing out.
Yeah.
Irrespective of their race.
Sure. And I hear you, and I agree with you, except the canons of academia. You understand why all universities have those great halls and stairs and those pillars that stand?
Yeah.
That is
symbols.
Yes. Those are symbols that say, this
is what we are about.
This is what we are about.
And you're not part of it.
Lentole, outside of the gate, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so that's how the concept, my study sounds like it's about Black psychological empowerment, and it is, but actually the focus is on how these scholars think more than it is about the concept as such. And so the three major findings is that, like, when I looked at it in analyzing all their responses to this is that when they, and I looked at it through a lens of time, in that the first question is about looking back, right? And so when they look back on the experience of the oppressive trinity, the way they conceptualize it is that experience unfolded as if it was one coherent experience with a singular narrative and a singularly universal impact on the psychological life of people of African descent. And then the way, when they then conceptualize, so what does Black psychological empowerment, what does that mean? That coherent narrative through which they looked at the past, when they put it in the present, what does it mean now as we stand here in the present? What does Black psychological empowerment mean? It starts to become a complex. It's a complex concept. It's not as easy and clear to define as what the past was seen as. And therefore the expectation being that it moves seamlessly into the present, and it doesn't. It's a complex concept because there's competing priorities around gender, around even the problematizing of the concept of race. Who is Black? Who is Black? What does it mean to be Black? What is race? You know, and who is Black enough and who is not Black enough? Now, it becomes such a frustrating thing, being like, I don't want to discuss what does it mean to be Black. It's given. No, it's not. Academia needs you to define what that means. And so it starts to look at all these things. It starts to look at class. What is class? Who is? Who is where? It starts to look at how do these things intersect with gender? Even. How do we prioritize Black psychological empowerment? Who gets... And so there's all these... It's a muddled up concept. It's not as simple to define in the present. And if you then say, given this complexity and intersectionality with race, between race, class, and gender, how do we get there? Well, the interesting thing is that they remain in the ivory and ebony tower of academia. It's a concept. It's about writing papers. It's about, you know, and then I say, but if this thing is ever going to be achievable, it needs to live outside of the gates of the Great Hall, right? Because if we are talking about Black psychological empowerment, it has to talk to the person outside of this. Institutions.
Absolutely.
Of higher education, the ivory tower that becomes the ebony tower. Because what then happens is that, unfortunately, it is about coloniality, the omnipresence of coloniality. Because the minute you say psychology, you are talking about a concept that is already defined. The parameters zayo are defined in terms of what does psychology mean. This is what it means. So anything you want to do outside of that is now considered sacrilege.
And yet we know that nothing ever remains static, right? You can have a definition that is context or time specific, but everything morphs,
evolves
with time, right? And why on earth would this one be excluded from that natural evolutionary process?
Because coloniality is about gatekeeping.
You know, one of my things, and some of my friends tell me that I'm delusional and idealistic when I say this. I have a lot of belief that if you want to render yourself irrelevant, stay there, right? The reality is that life is going to develop beyond you.
With or without.
Now you can either come along or stay behind.
Yeah.
And this is why even now there's all of these debates about the role of academia and whether it's worthwhile spending 3-4 years doing one degree when you come out, you know. So it's because we have constructed this thing as a holy cow that is meant to maintain a particular shape irrespective of how life has shifted.
Yeah. And it extricates itself from society and puts itself somewhere out there where it has an independent existence that does not relate. And in fact, it demands of people to come here on my terms. And once you enter my turf, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to play by these rules.
Yeah.
Because if you want me to confer a PhD on you, a PhD is a thing that does this. And so if you don't want a PhD, go outside and be an activist. Say what you like. But if you're going to want me to do this on you, this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, it will catch up. I still believe in that.
Sure.
Screaming and kicking, of course. Magic wand. I'm going to give you a magic wand.
Right.
You have all of these challenges with this field, particularly with the African-ness of it. What would you like to see happening?
I would like to see us, Black people, demand more from ourselves.
Oh, I love that.
So that we can get more for ourselves.
I love that. Do you know why I love that so much?
Tell me.
Yeah. You're not demanding anything from anyone, guys. Me, I'm so tired. So this is my favorite response to date to the magic wand question. Please continue. Yes.
Really, we ought to demand more from ourselves because we are worth a lot more than what we have allowed ourselves to be relegated to. We have played far too long to the script that was defined for us and have made it and adopted it and internalized it and limited and castrated ourselves at all levels. And so that's what I want. That's what I want. I want us to know who we are.
Yeah.
I want us to remember who we are because right now we are dismembered. To remember is to put together, to piece together what belongs together. We are a people. We are equal to the task. We have a role and a seat at the table of civilization. Let's stop this nonsense of holding ourselves so small, of living the pity party and being at the bottom of the barrel.
Speak, sister.
It's enough. And for me, and if I look at Africa, if I look at South Africa, like I really don't care.
Yeah.
My focus is on us.
Yeah.
What are we doing to ourselves?
Yeah.
What are we doing to ourselves? And if there's anything I want, it is I demand that we demand more from ourselves. And I will look at it at the most granular level. We need to interrogate our relationship with filth.
Say more.
We need to interrogate our relationship with filth. We have to ask ourselves why. Lapho kukhona thina, we are defined by filth.
Yo, guys in.
Can we just understand a simple equation? Eti paper and bin. Can we just make a connection between these two things?
Hey.
Why is it la kukhona thina? Why kungcolile? That's the thing that keeps me awake at night. Why? Why can we just not figure this thing out? And then we have the audacity to protest service delivery. When we are the ones, it's not like people baphuma ngaphandle come into our spaces elokishini bafike bazongcolisa yithi why can't we demand better conditions for ourselves? Why is it la kufika thina we are marked i-bus stop uzobona ukuthi i-bus stop yabo bani i-taxi rank uzobona ukuthi i-taxi why la kukhona thina kungcolile? This is the thing that torments me. It's that simple.